colleagues who have told me they had to miss family vacation because there was an end-of-quarter deadline.
Do you think Americans realize how much time their members of Congress are spending raising money?
I don't. I think they know that there is too much money in politics, but the whole purpose of my STOP Act is to pull the curtain back on the amount of time that members of Congress spend raising money. In any other profession, if you spent 20 to 30 hours a week doing a job other than which you were hired, you'd be fired. But we've accepted this political culture that somehow it's acceptable and it's wrong.
Congressman Jolly is among more than 10 candidates from both parties seeking the Florida Senate seat and is trying to stand out from the crowd. He joins us at the table. Congressman, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
You've admitted yourself that you're not optimistic this bill can actually pass. Congressman Steve Israel, a Democrat, said he called it not meaningful. It's not going to take money out of politics. If that's the case, why do it?
Let's not get off on a bad note, but with all due respect to Steve Israel, he waited until he announced his retirement to actually lament how much time he spent raising money. I'm trying to do something about it while I'm in Congress. It can get done, but it's going to take the will of the American people, the anger of the American people, when they learn that you have a part-time Congress in a full-time world, spending more time shaking down the American people for money than doing their job. We can get it done as a country. As one member of Congress, it is a challenge with leadership. That's true.
I just heard you say that some members have actually missed family vacations because they were on call duty, so to speak. What are the consequences if a member of Congress doesn't raise enough money? Are there consequences?
Well, first, your own reelection. You know, a lot of people talk about the amount of money in politics. That's true. And so it takes a certain amount of time to raise that money. So you do have to raise sufficient money for your own reelection. But then there's also an expectation to raise money for your party, and that's on both sides of the aisle. An expectation that you will spend time asking people to support your party and hitting certain targets, $500,000, $1 million or so forth.
And if you don't hit the targets, what happens?
You know, leadership gets to make decisions in terms of where you go in Congress, committee assignments, whether or not you receive a chairmanship, other certain perks, I suppose. And then what they do offer to some of your large donors are trips, excursions. You know, my colleague Rick Nolan called this telemarketing. The incentives are very similar to a telemarketing firm. The more you raise, the more benefits.
It speaks perhaps to, though, a larger problem, money in politics.
Sure.
It seems that you are weaponizing shame here to a degree, and yet you have a super PAC supporting you, a super PAC funded with hundreds of thousands of dollars. So why not speak to the bigger issue?
Okay, so two things. First, I would also say my super PAC is less funded than all my other opponents. So is a super PAC going to decide this election? Certainly not on my behalf. But to your point, there is too much money in politics. We need broad, comprehensive campaign finance reform. I'm a Republican who will step up and say, let's do it.
You'll support that now?
I'll support campaign finance reform.
How do you do that?
Well, so that is a multi-year debate with very complex constitutional issues, right? How do you protect the constitutional privilege of people to contribute with reasonable regulations on that participation? But right now, if we focus solely on the STOP Act, we can get this done now. One simple change. Stop members of Congress from directly soliciting contributions. This is about getting back to work. Put down the phone, get back to work.
What reaction did you get from people after the story last night?
You know, I said to my wife, the only people who are angry at us are guilty as charged in Washington, D.C. The affirmation from people across the state of Florida and across the country is very real. A third grader understands. Do your job. Do your job. In any other profession, if you spent half your week doing something other than you were hired to do, you'd be fired.
You'd lose your job. In Nora's piece last night, she said your STOP Act is either courageous, a campaign ploy, or political suicide. Are you prepared to possibly lose your job?
If it means losing my job to bring light to what should be a national scandal, my wife and I are happy to accept that fate.
But did you have a discussion with your wife about this before you did?
I did. Look, this is very real. To confront a problem in the face of colleagues who you respect, this isn't to judge my colleagues, this is to judge a system. But to bring to light what is a scandal is always hard.
You mentioned tapping anger to a degree here, and in doing this now in this political season, what sort of tapping this anger you believe will do what for you? I mean, there is a degree of campaigning here for you.
No, I want to pass the STOP Act. Members of Congress get paid $174,000 a year. If we don't pass the STOP Act, let's cut their salary in half because they're spending half their time raising money and not doing their job.
All right, Congressman. Have you ever heard "For He's a Jolly Good Fellow" or "'Tis the Season to Be"?
The first time he's heard it.
"'Tis the season-" Yeah.
Anything that'll get the STOP Act. So
Is that original?
TheStopAct.com.
All right, Congressman.
People can sign our petition. Let's get it done.
Thank you, Congressman
You got
David Jolly. Our best to Mrs. Jolly, who came today in the green room.
You got it.
Very nice. Tomorrow morning, House Speaker Paul Ryan returns